Oh man, AP. It says win it for the wall, and oh boy, I can show you the wall right here. It goes straight up, and AP, the Los Angeles Clippers, won it for the wall in a fantastic environment out here at Intuit Dome in Inglewood, California. And the Denver Nuggets are coming back home to play a Game 7 for the second straight year after losing a disappointing Game 6. You were at Ball Arena tonight while the Avalanche were playing a Game 6 that went the opposite way to force a Game 7. They were basically the Clippers of that situation. But let me tell you, I mean, I think we were both feeling pretty good earlier today about where the Nuggets were. I thought the Nuggets came out with a fury, and they had about 10 minutes of just absolutely lost offense between the second and third quarters where it didn't seem like they had a plan. And those 8 turnovers in the second quarter end up costing them, and now they're playing a Game 7.
Are we surprised though? I agree with you. Like, and go watch the previous shows. Like, you and I were both pretty high on this Denver Nuggets team tonight, just because I thought that the Gordon, game winner there in Game 4, the follow up in Game 5, the way that they dismantled the Clippers wall to wall in that game, like you got to be feeling good, right? I mean, they looked really, really, really good in Game 5. And before I talk about the Clippers, this is who the Nuggets have been all season. Inconsistent. One step forward, 2 steps back, right? Sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But like, they have just been inconsistent is the only way that I could label it. And that's why, as frustrating as it is, it's not shocking. And you got to give credit where credit is due. James Harden showed up tonight. Kawhi did his thing. Norman Powell did his thing. We'll talk about it throughout the course of the show here tonight. But pressure's on. Coming back to Denver now for Game 7.
Yeah, the pressure is really on AP. And, this is, like I said, after the show the other night, like this could have been the last win we saw of this core together.
Yep.
We don't know. This still could be the situation. You never know what's going to happen in a Game 7. I was just in the Nuggets locker room. I would say their attitude was very similar to what it was on Tuesday night, which in my mind was a good thing because they were
Yep.
very serious after that Game 5 win. One of the things they did mention, and not to spin it forward too much, but we'll talk about it later on the show, is they felt like the Clippers rode some momentum from that late Game 5 comeback that fell short. And tonight they feel like they actually came out of this game with momentum, even though they lost,
Uh-oh.
because of the way they finished the fourth quarter. So maybe something to watch, and we'll talk about that a little later in the show. But I think the Nuggets really established themselves well tonight, and then all of a sudden, Nikola Jokic checks out of the game, and DeAndre Jordan was a traffic cone. He was completely unplayable tonight. Jokic comes back in 3 minutes later, and he has a 15-point second quarter, and it's still not good enough for the Nuggets to go back up at halftime because of how bad those 3 minutes were with DJ on the floor. Jamal Murray was wide open the entire first quarter, has 12 points. On the game, Jamal Murray finishes with 21 points. He was basically useless after about midway through the first half, and the Clippers made some major adjustments. I said they didn't really have much more left on their sleeve. I was wrong. They had one more thing to do, and that was to shrink their rotation. They didn't play Ben Simmons tonight. They decide Chris Dunn halfway through the game isn't going to play anymore, and they just have Nick Batum out there. And Jokic was asked about Nick Batum after the game. He said, Nick Batum's a better shooter than Chris Dunn, and Nick Batum can defend 1 through 5. So clearly, Jokic thinks that Nick Batum is better for the Clippers on both sides of the ball, and the statistics bear it out in this series so far. And Batum was a plus 11 in this game. So I'm not going to say the guy with 6 points flipped the game, but I think he certainly had an impact and played a bigger role as a role player than any of the Nuggets role players tonight. And on top of that, the stars for the Clippers, as you alluded to, AP, Kawhi, James, both played better than Nikola and Jamal over the totality of the game. So I think a lot of things went wrong for the Nuggets tonight, and yet they still had a chance at the end, which is pretty incredible to think about.
Yeah, and a couple things that I want to hit on there. Norman Powell, Kawhi, James Harden combined for nearly 80 points tonight. And that's kind of where we have to start in regards to that conversation. And look, I expected it from Kawhi. I expected it from Norman Powell, just because he hasn't shown up. You should expect it from James Harden, but it's been a bit hit or miss in his history. We'll see what he does now in Game 7. But there's a couple of different interesting thoughts that come out of this game, and to go back to your point that you made about the adjustment that Ty Lue made tonight. People tend to act out of one of two reasons: inspiration or desperation. And tonight, the Clippers were desperate. Their backs were against the wall. You have to, no pun intended. They had to get a win in this game, and they adjusted accordingly.
And you saw it play out on the floor because every single 50-50 ball went the Clippers' way. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like every single out of bounds was last touched by a Nugget. Like some of it was, effort, but a lot of it, honestly, was just unluckiness. Like I think the Nuggets got some really bad bounces in this game, akin to the Avalanche getting some really good puck luck tonight. Like it went against one KSE team, it went for one KSE team, and sometimes that's sports. And it doesn't happen as often in basketball because the ball is literally shaped like a ball, whereas in football, luck determines the sport all the time because the ball can bounce literally any direction and no one has any idea. It's the craziest thing about basketball, but you have to credit James Harden. He walked into Intuit Dome today looking like he was ready to go to Cancun. Like if you watch the video of James Harden strolling up to the stadium, it looked like he was ready for the beach. He played 47 minutes tonight, AP. It was an impressive 47 minutes. He got to the free throw line early a couple times. It got him into the zone, and then he was able to hit a step back jumper on Christian Brown. And this was all when the Clippers could not shoot threes. Like they made, I think, 1 3 in the first quarter, and then they had 4 at halftime, and then they made another 4 in the third quarter. So it wasn't like the Clippers shot the lights out. It was kind of the Clippers taking advantage of the Nuggets' mistakes, winning those loose balls, and continuing to just stick with their game plan throughout the course of the game. I honestly thought it was the most impressive Clippers win of the series because game 3, they just shot the lights out. Tonight, they didn't get that, and they still found a way to win.
Yeah, it was a gutsy win for the Clippers. And again, back against the wall, like this, you expected their best punch. And I know that there was this notion, and I subscribed to it a little bit, that the Clippers would just roll over and die. And I thought Denver was actually on the path to that with the way they played in the first quarter. Jamal Murray hunting his shot, nearly 10 points in the first quarter. The defense was a bit interesting on Jamal. And then, what is the everlasting problem with the Denver Nuggets in the Nikola Jokic era? The non-Jokic minutes, which you touched on. The second Jokic comes out of the game, whether it's in the start of the second quarter or at the beginning of the fourth quarter, things tend to spiral out of control. And as I was watching the Avalanche tonight at Ball Arena, I had my AirPods in as well, and I'm listening to the broadcast, and they talked about how I think the Nuggets bench, I forget exactly, but they're obviously in the minus in the box plus minus with Jokic, but I believe it's in the single digits. I don't know if that includes tonight's game, but in the series they were. And so they had done a good job of kind of protecting themselves and, not letting the game get away. And it just felt like it felt really good in the first quarter. And it felt like as soon as Nikola Jokic was taken out of the game, that allowed the Clippers to find their path, find their footing, and ultimately win this basketball game.
Yeah, DJ was only a -6 in this game, but that came at the pivotal point that really sparked the Clips. Russ was even off the bench because he really played with the starters in the second half. Michael Porter Jr. was a -24. He did not score till late in the third quarter, was putting up that trillionaire stat line, only had 3 rebounds, clearly affected by the shoulder. And I think that he may have learned his lesson, and he might take that pain shot come Saturday night. I mean, I overheard some things in the locker room with him, talking about that. And I just think, maybe it finally caught up to him that he was playing through such a real injury that cost guys weeks, and Porter's playing through it. So it's hard to blame Porter, but at the same time, he's out there, and he was a 0 tonight. Like he was a 0. Yeah. I don't think he was truly that bad. Like people are going to say he was that bad. I don't think he was costing the Nuggets the game. I think other guys cost the Nuggets the game before I'd go to Porter, because at least he was spacing the floor and creating some sort of pressure release valve for the Nuggets. Whereas in the middle of the second quarter and the third quarter, and Jamal Murray talked about this with me after the game, he's like, we were just really disorganized. Mm-hmm. And Nikola basically said as much as there was no spacing. So I'm gonna say Porter is the problem when Porter is the guy doing most of those things correctly. So I think the Nuggets offense cost them tonight's game, and it's really annoying to say because their offense has maybe cost them 2 to 3 games in this series, which is crazy to say about a team that has had the best offense in the NBA the last 5 seasons.
Yeah, and I mean, offense typically is. I mean, when they score 105 points, and I understand it's the playoffs, and so it's a different environment. But and I don't know what their season average is off the top of my head, but that off the rip just seems low for the Denver Nuggets. I mean, they are typically
it's like 118. It's like 118 or something. Yeah. And in this series, they scored 131 last game, 101 83, 102, 112. So this is just a little bit probably below their average for this series, but it still was noticeable because I thought the pace was a little bit higher in today's game.
Yeah, that's fair. That's for sure fair. And I think, even just looking at some of the stats and just the box score here tonight, I mean, you look at that second quarter, I mean, they allowed the Clippers to outscore them 33-29. Okay, on paper, it doesn't seem that bad, but that's because Nikola Jokic was brought back in and helped stop the bleeding. But it's that third quarter. The non-Jokic minutes is probably problem number one in the Jokic era, but problem number two is the third quarter as a whole. And tonight, you and I were texting about it during the game. It felt like we turned the clock back to 2022. And they got absolutely outclassed in that third quarter. LA beat them by 10 points, 32-22. And, when they outscored the Clippers to the Nuggets 26-21 in the fourth, but just not enough. And I know there's a lot of people that want to point the finger at Russell Westbrook because Denver was in this game late and he had a couple of bad misses. But like Denver put themselves in this position. Denver put themselves in the position of Russell Westbrook to have to play hero ball. Like Denver did not make anything easy on themselves tonight after the first quarter. And it's disappointing, but again, it's not surprising to me. And I know we'll talk about kind of where our heads are at now for game 7 a little bit later on in the program, but I just think the biggest thing that you could do now is just flush this game, get out of your system and, get back on track and get back to Denver. They're probably on the plane right now. And they're not.
They're staying in LA tonight and they're flying back tomorrow, which I thought was a really interesting move.
I wonder why. I'd want to get home at LA.
I'm going to say guys probably would have stayed in LA anyway, so they thought we might as well just wait and fly home tomorrow, and the guys can stay together. So I'm not really sure, but the guys are flying home tomorrow, and they're going to have a quick turnaround, one night sleep in Denver. I did look up the number just because I wanted to make sure our lovely listeners have the correct information. Tonight was actually the second highest offensive rating by the Nuggets in this series. Their turnover percentage of 15.9% was tied for the third fewest turnover percentage in this series. Their true shooting percentage of 59% was also tied for the second highest of this series. There are all sorts of data that shows you that what I said was wrong, but I'm telling you, I was here. I had the eye test, and the Nuggets offense was bunk tonight for large stretches of that game. And Jamal Murray's shot making early on, and then late when they got some breaks, so to speak, when the Clippers kind of packed it in and their legs were a little bit wary because they had not played that many minutes before in quite a while. That's when the Nuggets took advantage. But for the second and third quarter, the Nuggets offense was straight up bad, besides Nikola Jokic just taking it over. That's what was needed. I wish being here that Nikola Jokic could have kept that pace up from the second quarter into the third quarter, because that would have changed the game. But the reason why he may have not was because the refs were not calling anything, according to David Adelman. Now, I here did not see the refs being extremely bad tonight. I don't think, like, I'm normally the first person to be like, it was bad.
Yes,
I'm that guy. I am. I'm self-aware. The thing is, maybe it's just because I'm used to it. Like every single game, Jokic is just getting beat up by smaller guys. And because of that, it allows the bigger man to come help side. And it not only bothers Nikola Jokic and doesn't allow him to get to the line, but it makes it harder for him to operate because the teams can beat up on him and then bring a second defender. So right. I didn't think it was like aggressively bad tonight, but David Adelman did and basically said, it was absolutely ridiculous that he only shot 2 free throws tonight. And to his point, he shot 18 times from 2-point range and only shot 2 free throws, which I think is an incredible number, especially considering what SGA, what Giannis, what Joel Embiid, what James Harden, even these former MVPs and soon to be MVP and SGA, what they shoot from the free throw line when they do get this many field goal attempts inside the 3-point line.
Yeah, but again, this has been the story with Jokic and company for years now. And I hate that mindset. And there's always going to be a handful of calls here or there. But also, like, look at the playoffs as a whole this year. I mean, the refs have been letting a lot of physicality play out. And so I just think that's a loser mentality to be in the press conference. You can acknowledge the refs. Jared Bednar talked about it. Avalanche broadcasters were talking about how they thought the Stars are flopping in this series. I don't know if you saw that. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But I just think complaining, like, what's the old saying? Like, you should be good enough to win the game regardless of the opponent and the referees. And so it is what it is. And I mean, going back to your point about offense too, man, I mean, there's a couple of stats in particular that also stand out tonight. And two things, again, can you control the referees? No. You know what you can control? Turnovers and free throws. And I understand that Denver only shot 9 free throws tonight. They hit 6 of them, so the percentage is a little skewed there, but it feels like Denver's been in the 60% in the free throw department for a lot of these games throughout the course of the series.
And you lose the game by 6, to your point about turnovers, and you lose the turnover and the points off the turnovers, AP, 23 to 10. And that's, to me, what I saw. It wasn't necessarily that one team was better on the fast break than the other, but when the Clippers slowed it down after the turnover, they still took advantage of the mismatches that come from having those turnovers. And the Nuggets really never got settled. And that's what I talk about when they didn't seem to have an offensive game plan, and then it affected them defensively. To my point, Jamal Murray had 2 shot clock violations in this game. Like, that's just bizarre. And I don't know if that's because of the wall or it's because of Jamal was really truly smothered by a different style of defense because Chris Dunn was not on him. Chris Dunn was on him early. He cooked. Nick Batum and other guys came on him late. Kawhi Leonard guarded him for large stretches of this game, and it didn't seem like he was able to get off. So to me, it's the 50-50 balls. It's the points off the turnovers. And it's the fact that, you know, a couple plays here and there don't go their way. So to me, I'm not on the refs thing tonight like David Adelman is, but I thought it was a smart move from him, AP. And here's why. Take a fine, and you're in the ref's ears right away from the jump going into Game 7. You better have my guys back. You better blow this whistle. He doesn't have to get a technical early in that game if a call goes wrong because he's already in the ref's mind of that might be an issue. And I'm not reporting anything here. All I'm saying is I was within feet of Stan Kroenke multiple times tonight, and I saw Stan Kroenke talk to David Adelman right after the game. So maybe David and Stan expressed their mutual discontent, and it was allowable for David to go off on the referees, and there is a handshake on who pays that fine. And I'm not reporting anything. I'm just kind of theorizing because a lot of times in the NBA, when the coach gets off like that, it is actually paid by the team. So maybe it was something that, you know, the Nuggets as an organization were trying to make a point, and David Adelman is just their spokesperson. So I kind of hated it in the sense that I thought it was whiny, and I didn't think it cost them the game tonight. Sometimes it does, and I like it when the guy's tying for their guy like that. But I understand it in the course of a series when you're trying to affect what happens 2 nights from now.
Yeah, I think it's fair. And I think that's really all there is to say on that, right? Like you expect Adelman to go out and say something, right? You expect the players to feel some type of way. But again, that is reason number 12, in my opinion, as to why Denver lost this game. I think there's plenty of other reasons. You talked about the turnovers and the points conceded off the turnovers. I talked about the free throws, talked about Norman Powell and James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. Talking about Michael Porter Jr., right? Like, these are all reasons that should rank ahead. Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, right? Like, these are all reasons that should rank ahead over the referees in regards to why Denver lost this game. I saw your tweet, or one of your many tweets. Follow the man at Chapalicious. He's great. But did David Adelman say something in his post-game press conference about, like, wanting Jokic to be more aggressive? Did I see that correctly? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the exact quote. But basically, DA said, you know, we love the way Jokic plays. He's a great teammate. But the question, I think it was Bennett's or Vinny's, one of our colleagues that we like so much, was about how Jokic didn't take enough threes maybe tonight. And especially late in the game, he passed up on a 3 that you thought maybe he was going to shoot. And the Nuggets really needed a 3. They were like down 7 with like a minute and a half left. So they really needed the 3. And David Adelman said basically it's a good conversation to have with Nikola, maybe shooting more 3s, but probably have a better mix on Saturday, you know, letting that thing fly a little bit, you know, especially when you know, there's box outs down the floor. I think he's the most unselfish player he can be, and Saturday maybe he should be a little bit more selfish. So I think that's a sign that the Nuggets want Jokic to take more 3s. I don't know if he can really shoot the ball more. He took 22 shots. And as we've talked about over and over, it's actually better for the Nuggets when he doesn't take shots. But if you look back at the Game 7s Nikola has played, Nikola has taken quite a few shots. And I'm going to pull up this research in a second. But how do you feel about that now, knowing that that's kind of David's mindset going into this Game 7, that he wants Jokic coming out and just firing?
It's the right mindset. And I agree in regards to, like, in a perfect world, like the Denver Nuggets are at their best when Jokic is playing facilitator, right? I think that applies more to the regular season. And I think you've seen it pay off in some playoff games, not just this year, but previous seasons as well. Nikola Jokic needs to go out in game 7 and play this game like an apex predator. Because I like Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray was fan-freaking-tastic in game 5. I'm not saying that's not going to be the case for game 7, but I feel a lot more comfortable, and I feel like the Nuggets have a much better chance to win game 7 if Jokic wakes up, looks himself in the mirror, remembers that he's a 3-time MVP and an NBA champion, and goes out there and plays one of the best games of his life. Because that is take Jamal out of it, take MPJ out of it, take Gordon out of it. Jokic himself can will this team to victory if he has that dominant MVP-esque type of game, which we really haven't seen this series. I mean, we saw it third quarter of game 4, but body of work, like, we haven't seen the Jokic 61, 10, and 10.
I don't know. 32, 21, and 8's pretty incredible, brother.
It is. But I guess my thing is more on the scoring and, like, the aggression. Like, if that makes sense. I don't know. I think Denver has the best player in the series. He hasn't been the best player in every game. Bottom line, Denver wins game 7 if Nikola Jokic is the best player on the floor. And I think you need the mentality to represent that.
I would spin it a little bit differently than the way you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but I'm going to put it this way. Nikola Jokic, the Nuggets don't win game 7 unless Nikola Jokic is the best player on the floor. I think there's a way they lose game 7 even if Nikola Jokic is the best player on the floor, but I think that the starting point for the Nuggets recipe to win is that he needs to be the best player on the floor. What number do you think he needs to get to in terms of points? Where do you feel comfortable?
30 plus.
Okay. So in playoff games where Nikola Jokic scores 30 or more points, I'm looking at it right now. It's happened 33 times.
Wait, he's had 33 playoff games with 30 plus points?
Yes, that's happened 33 times.
What?
Isn't that crazy?
That's disgusting. That's like
what do you think the Nuggets?
Almost.
What do you think the Nuggets' record is in those games?
I kind of have a feeling it's not good. I'm put my foot in.
They have 14 losses of the 33.
Okay.
So what is that? 19 and 14.
Okay,
I think I can't do the math. Yeah, it's a winning record, but it's not as good as maybe you would hope. To your point specifically on game 7s, I was pulling this up while I was hanging out waiting for you a little bit. Who would you guess out of the 5 game 7s Nikola and Jamal have played together? Who do you think has taken the most shots more often in those games?
I'd guess Jamal.
You would think so, and my memory told me it was Jamal, especially with that San Antonio game 7 and kind of the blur in your mind in the Utah game. Only 1 out of the 5 games did Nikola take fewer shots than Jamal. So 4 of the 5, Nikola was the leading shot taker between the two. I didn't look up every single player on the team, but I would assume Nikola with 28, 13, 23, 26, and 26 field goal attempts was most likely the leading shot taker for the Denver Nuggets 4 of those 5 nights. In those game 7s, the Denver Nuggets are 3-2 with Nikola Jokic. They've been very good in closeout games under Nikola Jokic, as we all know. I've looked this up as well. Out of anybody in the NBA who has played more than 3 game 7s since the turn of the decade, since the turn of the century, since the 2000s started. If you base it off game score, which is a good metric that kind of just combines everything like a fantasy stat, the best players in game 7s, LeBron James, average game score of 27.4 in 8 game 7s. Kevin Durant, 5 game 7s, 27.1. Steph Curry is third, 5 game 7s, 25.1. Dirk Nowitzki, 4, with 5 game 7s and a 23.5. Right below him at 23.4 average game scores is Nikola Jokic in his 5 game 7s. And if you look in James Harden and Kawhi Leonard's mark, James Harden game score in game 7s out of his 6 is a 16.7. That is very bad. Comparatively to where he is in his career. And Kawhi Leonard also has played 6 game 7s, also a 16 0.3 career game score. And just to give you context of where Kawhi and James Harden is, Jamal Murray's career game score in Game 7 is 16.2. So history tells us that the Nuggets have by far the best player in this situation. And by the way, Jokic is still at his peak. Both Kawhi and James Harden are a little bit past it. So you're telling me I've got a game at home with by far the best player, and history tells me he's going to come out and play balls to the wall in a Game 7. I still feel pretty good if I'm a Denver Nuggets fan. Obviously, feel less good than I did maybe 10 hours ago, but still feel pretty good about going through in this series.
Nuggets in 7 was my prediction. And I would have loved for them to close it out tonight in 6. I'm not surprised. I'm a little disappointed, obviously, but Nuggets in 7 is just because I was like, they're going to lose games in stupid ways. Not that they did necessarily tonight. I just think the Clippers were the better team, but here we are, Jake. Ball Arena is going to be rocking and rolling on Saturday. And of course, the Avalanche, play within 30 minutes of them as well. So denversports.com, the socials, will have you covered there as well. But to your point, and put a bow on it, I got the Nuggets winning the game. I don't know if it'll be big. I don't know if it'll be close, but I feel good in Denver's ability to win that game. And I'll say it now as well. If they do lose, my tone will be very much the same as it is tonight. We'll obviously do some big picture stuff on the show, but it's a 50-50 thing. And I'm going to trust the Nuggets because they have Nikola Jokic. But again, if they do lose, I will not be surprised. This is who they've been all season.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a 5-4 matchup. You wouldn't be surprised either way, whichever team wins. What do you think?
They're not the Lakers.
Guess the lines. Guess the spread, the opening spread on that Game 7.
Oh, that's got to be because it was like, 6.5, 7 tonight. I got Denver -1. It's got to be pick, no?
Clippers -1 in the game.
Wow.
So Vegas is not buying that the Nuggets are going to carry some momentum from the end of this game. I know that's kind of Christian Brown's spin in the locker room. I didn't believe it, and I would be remiss if I didn't end on this because I said Russell Westbrook had a good game, and he really did. He was really good offensively for large portions of this game. AP, dude, I don't know how you're one of the best players in NBA history and you can't hit a layup in the clutch. It's unbelievable.
It is.
He has a chance for the Nuggets, who are roaring back and making a comeback. He has a chance to bring it down to a 4-point game with 2:43 left, and he misses the layup, or maybe it was 2:15. Either way, he misses the layup, and then he misses a 3-point pull-up, and then a couple seconds later, he misses a 2-point shot. So within the course of 65 seconds, Russ goes 0 for 3, including 2 shots at the rim, one of which was pretty much open in transition. And it's the third time in about a month he's missed a huge layup late in the game when he was open. And it's just, I mean, this time he obviously should have taken at least. So that's not a debate, but it's so frustrating watching him play basketball as a basketball purist, the mistakes that he made. He had a turnover tonight early on in the game where he just threw the ball straight up out of bounds because he got caught in the air. And again, he had a pretty good game, and the Nuggets need his legs. But my God, how is this the Nuggets' 5th option right now? Or sometimes 4th option? It's dumbfounding that they're in this situation. And, maybe we're going to talk ourselves into the Nuggets can beat Oklahoma City even on tired legs. I don't know. Maybe someone will do that. But as long as Russell Westbrook's on this team, man, the Nuggets aren't getting past Oklahoma City.
The experience, brother. Thank you, Calvin Booth. Not for Russ, but the roster construction. And we've talked about it time and time again. The Russ isn't the problem. It's the amount of Russ. So I'll leave it at that. I'm excited for Game 7, buddy. We'll have a good time.
All right.
Hey, shout out Mountain High Appliance.
Shout out Mountain High folks. Shout out Mountain High Appliance. We're here at Intuit Dome because of them. And thank you guys for listening to Mile High Hoops podcast. We'll be back Saturday night after the Denver Nuggets either advance or their season ends against the Los Angeles Clippers in Ball Arena. He's Aniello Piro. I'm Jake Shapiro. Thank you for watching.